So one of the things I want to look back on is the year in culture, the year in the arts. And this is actually a very important year in the arts, but not for a good reason. I've been talking a while about the slump in American creativity. Part of that probably has to do with the COVID lockdowns that did curtail the movie industry and the TV industry, and maybe a little bit the publishing industry even. But I think it's more than that. I think that storytelling has declined since the turn of the century, a golden era of television. And as I've said many times before, that golden era of television focused almost entirely on anti-heroes. It was like The Shield and The Sopranos and Breaking Bad. It was one bad guy after another. And I really did believe that was, I think it was Rene Girard who said that a culture in decline, a culture that's decadent, cannot produce heroes. It can only produce anti-heroes. And so I think that was a moment when we actually did not know how to portray a good man, and a good man, a man, to be a man, had to be some kind of outlaw. That's not always true in society. In some societies, I mean, for instance, if you have the legends of the Wild West and the legends of King Arthur and his knights, the good man is the hero, and he's a guy who does right, and he is a protector of women and the weak. And he is somebody that you turn to for help, and he may have to be a tough guy at times, but he doesn't have to be a bad guy. There was a real kind of consensus that the only way we could see men, real men being men, was if they were in some way dishonest. And I think that has played out, and now we are looking, searching, groping for what a good man looks like. But the problem is feminism, has basically curtailed all the actions of men. So if a man saves a woman, why isn't the woman strong enough to save herself? Well, because in real life she wouldn't be and he would be, but they don't want to do real life because feminism is a fantasy. So I think that has really hurt our culture. And wokeism, of course, which is a total lie. The thing is, I always say I'm not anti-woke in the same way I'm not anti-astrology. It's just worthless. It's worthless garbage, and it's destructive to people who believe in it. It's destructive to our culture, but you can't make art out of wokeness because it's a lie. And so you have to say something true, even if you don't mean to say something true, in order for it to be art. So this was a bad year, one of the worst years I've ever seen. Backstage, Ben said at some point that there were no good stories anymore. I don't believe that at all. First of all, I write some good ones, but I think that there are people writing good stories. But I think right now, in the big culture, in that mainstream culture, that money-making culture that sort of dominates the conversation, it's very hard to come up with anything good because the people doing it are all left-wing. They have nobody to correct them. They have nobody to argue with them, no one to bring them down to earth, and they're making garbage. And they've been making garbage a long time. I mean, I think most of these superhero pictures, as I've said many times, are garbage. And one thing that people don't like, though, they don't like to hear that their culture is bad, inherently bad, like rap is inherently bad or superhero movies are inherently bad. Everybody backs off because if they weren't making money, if people weren't going to see them, they wouldn't be getting made. So they are saying something into the culture. It just doesn't mean that they are real art. So let me look at some of the stuff. I have to tell you that I did not see a single movie this year that I thought was good. One of the things, by the way, I should go back and say I agreed with Ben about is the reason for this is because nobody wants to talk about God. And without God, there's no moral world. And without a moral world, there's no struggle to become what a good man is or what a good woman is. And so there is no struggle. There's just kind of a wandering around having feelings. This was exemplified for me in a movie that did pretty well at the box office called Ambulance, which was an action picture by Michael Bay with Jake Gyllenhaal and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, and it was a heist picture. But the thing that was really interesting about it was it had no moral core. It starts out with this guy. He's black. He's a veteran. He's on the phone trying to get insurance for his wife and child from the VA, which is not responding. And so we immediately sympathize with him. But very early on in the picture, he's responsible for the death of a cop, and he does all kinds of terrible things throughout the movie. And yet somehow we're supposed to have this feeling that he's a good person because we've seen him in a sympathetic light. But bad people are in sympathetic lights too. As every thriller writer knows, you can put a bad person in a sympathetic light. And it was really interesting, this picture, Ambulance, almost worth watching as a cultural relic for its lack of moral core. And I think that has been true a lot. What was good? Northman was okay. Everywhere, All Together, All at Once, whatever it was called, was okay. Nothing was great. The Agatha Christie film, Death on the Nile, was fun and entertaining. Some people were angry on backstage when I hit Top Gun 2. I said it was tons of fun, wonderful to watch, an amazing technical experience. Cruise did a great job, kind of carrying a very corny, old-fashioned story on his shoulders. But it was empty of content. It was empty of moral content, and that meant it looked conservative. It was a conservative gesture, but it wasn't actually a conservative movie. And that's not, a movie doesn't have to be good, conservative to be good, but it has to have content to be good. And so it wasn't like a really good movie. It was just an entertainment, and it was great as an entertainment. I thought Father Stu was pretty good. I thought the performance by Mel Gibson, it was a surprising movie because I thought it was going to be a kind of slap-happy, tough guy becomes a priest and everything is great. But instead, it was a true story about a guy who had a terrible progressive muscle disorder, became a priest, and found out that suffering was part of the path to God. Good performance by Mark Wahlberg. Excellent performance by Mel Gibson. One of the best performances of his career as the lead, as Father Stu's father. Here's just a moment of Wahlberg talking about his suffering as his body decays and saying that this is actually, it's a complicated and difficult thought that this is actually a gift from God. This is cut 7.
All our outer nature is wasting away, but our inner nature is being renewed every day. This life, no matter how long it lasts, is a momentary affliction preparing us for eternal glory. And we shouldn't pray for an easy life, but the strength to endure a difficult one. Because the experience of suffering is the fullest expression of God's love. It is a chance to be closer to Christ.
That's a very tough thought, that suffering is the fullest expression of God's love, and just an interesting movie. At least it wasn't a great movie, but it was a good movie, and it was very interesting, and good performances in it. TV, which is still the best venue for film entertainment, for pictures, moving pictures. The Terminal List I liked a lot, was a lot of fun. Jack Carr came on the show and talked about that, and I think they did an excellent job with it, and really good adventure story stuff. I hope they make a sequel. The books are really good too, and worth getting. And Severance, which was, I guess, on Apple TV. That was really an interesting show. That was the one that was created by Dan Erickson, directed by Ben Stiller and others, and had Adam Scott in it. It was about a brain operation that means that you can go in and do classified work and not remember it during the day when you're not at work. So your work life and your life are severed, and we know something is going on, but we don't know quite what. My favorite scenes in Severance were the scenes outside of the workplace, which were the rare scenes where you saw a very kind of liberal, middle-class culture, but it was just incredibly stupid. So stupid it was almost hard to believe, which made me think that something more was going on. I don't know whether this is a great show or not, because it just hasn't gone far enough to sort of reveal itself, but it certainly was gripping and interesting and entertaining, and I will definitely go back and see the next season when it comes out. One show I felt that was underwatched, I think I covered it maybe on a YouTube video, but it was Blackbird. Blackbird is by my second favorite American crime writer after me. My favorite crime writer is me, and I had a great book come out this year. But Dennis Lehane is just a terrific crime writer, and you know him because he did. He's done a lot of things that were made into movies. Gone Baby Gone was one. The Mystic River was another. Mystic River, was that what it's called? Anyway, he's just a terrific writer. His novels are great, but he took an autobiographical novel by a guy who was sent to prison, a rich drug dealer who was sent to prison and enlisted to get a confession out of a serial killer who was already doing time. Here's a bit of the trailer. It's cut 5.
Dad, tell me there's a way out of this.
Not a quick one.
We would like you to transfer to another prison and befriend someone to elicit a confession.
We suspect that this man killed 14 women, but we only have one of the bodies.
Larry has vivid dreams.
Tell me about him.
In my dreams, I kill women. Those are just dreams.
In this prison, where the guys?
Maximum security specializing in the criminally insane.
You want me to check into hell and befriend the demon? Not for all the money in the world.
How about freedom?
So he makes the deal, obviously. Taron Egerton turning in a really good tough guy performance, a kind of Jimmy Cagney style performance. Good cast. Greg Kinnear is in it, Ray Liotta, late now Ray Liotta. But what is the guy who plays the serial killer is excellent too. I think his name is Hauser, Paul Hauser. Yeah, it's what's wonderful about it is its moral core. It is about an arrogant, rich, a pampered guy who becomes a drug dealer and makes all this easy money, has all these easy relationships with women, and in confronting this serial killer, he basically has to change and confront the evil in himself. Very, very good show and underwatched. I thought undersold. For me, always, the main culture is books. Books remain the heart of culture, and I'll tell you why. Movies, you always want to see the latest movie. I love old movies, but you want to see the latest movie. TV, you want to see what's going on. You want to talk to people. But books, you can read any book. Any great book is always relevant, and you can always go back into the past and find incredible entertainment. And you don't have to, whether the American culture is in a slump, you can read books from all over and from any time, and that's why I love them. So let me just give you a quick list of the best modern novel I read this year. It was a small novella really called Small Things Like These, by Claire Keegan. It's a very, very small book about the Magdalene laundries, which were abusive Catholic laundries for, wayward girls in Ireland, and it is a confrontation between this laundry and an ordinary man, a coal merchant named Bill Furlong, who confronts the evil in his town. And it's very quiet, very restrained, subtle book, but very, very moving and entertaining. Actually really moved me, just really good stuff. The best contemporary nonfiction I read this year was Desperate Remedies, Psychiatry's Turbulent Quest to Cure Mental Illness by Andrew Scull. And this, I really recommend it if you want to read it, about how awful the psychiatric industry has been, how awful the medical industry has been, and how each time a new, horrible, demented, terrible torture of a cure, like, lobotomies came along, the mainstream media was like, this is a miracle, this is great, while people were just absolutely torn to shreds. So if you think it's bad now, with the New York Times fronting for dishonest guys like Fauci, it has always been bad, and it's worth seeing. The best nonfiction book I read was really wonderful, called Centuries by Thomas Traherne. He was a 17th century Anglican cleric and theologian. This book, I don't think this book was even published. It was published for the first time in 1908, so it wasn't published in his lifetime. It is Meditations on Christ. C.S. Lewis called this the most beautiful book ever written, and I think it's right up there. It's certainly a really, really moving work. I'm going to reread it next year as my devotional because I just thought it was so good. And the best novel, not contemporary, that I read this year was The Razor's Edge by Somerset Maugham. I did this on a member block, 1944, which is a wonderful novel about a man who is searching for enlightenment in the midst of all the business of the world. And he's kind of a background figure who is looking for enlightenment while all of the loving and cheating and lying and, sex and marriage and divorce of the world and money making is going on. And that is something that I think is really important, to remember that most of the important stuff that's going on is not on TV. It's not being done by famous people. It's not being done by actors. It's not being done by celebrities. It's being done by moms. It's being done by guys living ordinary lives. That, I think, is a theme of Small Things Like These too, but certainly a theme of The Razor's Edge, one of the best novels, modern novels I've ever read, up there with Ulysses, which is a much, much harder book to read. And this is a very, very straightforward story, but very, very good. Books are always the place to go for culture. They're always alive. There's always good culture to be found somewhere. It just might not be the culture of the moment. And I do believe this culture, American culture, will come back as this period of demented decadence changes and we make the transition into a new generation, the generation, hopefully, that will be better than the one we've got now. For more Klavan-y goodness, like and subscribe, and please subscribe to the Andrew Klavan Podcast.